Keeping on track because it's so long.
All right, let's go ahead and bring this meeting of Templeton Community Services District Parks and Recreation and Reviews Committee meeting to order. Today's Friday, December 12th at 2 p.m. Roll call, please.
Cardonic.
Here.
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 Okay, thank you. Let's just jump to the first item, which is a site visit. We're gonna.
Yeah, so we had hoped to just simply walk down to where the rec center, the community center, skate park, and the community garden is, and do a tour there. Everyone can kind of view the same thing together, and then come back and just discuss. Because this is still, we're gonna pause the recording, and the room here will stay open. If you want to leave anything in this room that's valuable, we can just set it in this little conference room behind here. And when we get back, we'll restart the recording.
Okay, so we'll be back approximately about 45 minutes to an hour.
I would hope so.
Everybody watch it. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great. Wonderful. Well, we're back from our site visit. Thank you, Mel, for showing us everything.
Thanks for coming up.
Permitted. Do we make comments now for anything, or we should just, because this was just site visits, right? We should go.
I would say so. If there's comments about the maintenance, we can do it under the state.
Okay, so let's go to next item, which is maintenance needs progress update. And it's that.
Well, actually, we just really listed some photos and the description of some items that were necessary from about 18 months ago. That were listed, and we wanted just to get your feedback on, like, do you agree these are really what the priority should be, and in what order should they be tackled? So, and we had noted that the baseboard in the interior of the building was one on the interior, and then bathrooms. I don't know if anyone looks in the bathrooms. The bathroom, that's what you call the preschool room. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Kitchen, and then some of the corners were kind of dinged up. Those were the things that we had identified previously. On the outside, there was the outside of the building, and then we had some sample photographs from some time ago, and they're not better. They're just a little bit worse because we haven't really done this work, and this, some of this just more care and cleaning. But obviously you've got some when you paint or even replace some wood. As we kind of prepare for, budget level estimates and scheduling some of this work, whether that was the rec center, were there other items that you thought were necessary? So of course you saw the fence and then the handrails, rain gutter items.
Yeah.
Are there others that we should be tracking, and is there priority preference from your point of view?
I'm just wondering if, due to all the, wood, exposed wood and stuff, is there, do we need to do it like a termite inspection type of thing to see if there's any damage?
Dry rot kind of thing.
Dry rot or, insect,
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever done it like an inspection, a formal inspection, but you're right. Some of the wood may be to the point where it's just easier to replace than it is to try to salvage.
Exactly.
And on the community center, we had noted some the building on the outside and the condition of the handrails and such.
With the rain gutters, would it be prohibitively expensive to try and put some type of cover, that they install sometime? You see that, prevents leaves from building up inside of it.
If that's something we can look at, is whether or not we can, if that's preventative. And I made a note to at least get a service order to get the leaves out of the rain gutters. So
Yeah.
Present a problem.
And this is somewhat related, but do like the preschool, like, do they pay any sort of security deposit for? No.
No, just a rental. They've been in there a long time, so. Yeah. I think when it first started, it was. I want to say they were going before I was in there, so or soon after, it's like, 3:04 kind of timeframe.
Were they in there when we had the youth center? When we had our youth center?
Yeah, they went in the mornings, yeah. The preschool follows the school calendar. Really, they follow the old school calendar where they start after. Labor
Traditional,
Day,
traditional.
Traditional Labor Day, Memorial Day kind of situation. And then the school calendar within that, right? So they take off the same spring break, same winter break dates, so.
Yeah, the preschool isn't like a year round, although they have on a couple of occasions ran kind of abbreviated summer programs. It's not a year round use. There's, off 3 months and then.
So they don't pay for.
No, they
there's
only pay the hours they use.
Wow.
So,
I would say there is a need for childcare in Templeton in general. So they do feel there's a need. I get calls regularly about childcare options, so.
this is I call it like a traditional preschool. It's not daycare.
It's not daycare.
It's part-time, three days. It would not fill the need of a full-time working parent.
Working parent, not at all.
It's a traditional, like, I guess, the kind of preschool maybe I went to when I was a kid.
No.
So we're good with the maintenance. I think it's a good start in the, and, yeah, that makes sense. It's a good start. Next one is, community classes, structure.
Okay, this is an item the committee asked for a few months back. It kind of follows the comparison of how youth sports programs are operated in the region. And Mel put this, look up here.
Oh, yeah.
This schedule together and so Mel, explain what folks are seeing. I'll try to keep up with the.
Yeah, so it was frankly a bit daunting to try to put every community class that other communities offer. So I try to group them into like, the basics. So if you look at like, for example, City of Atascadero, excuse me, in that section, there's youth and adult dance. There's probably 5 or 6 varieties of dance class within that, right? CPR, they do, pretty regularly. This is an example of what was in their fall winter activity guide. The spring summer is not out yet. And I think it's linked in there too, if you're interested. So most community classes that you're gonna see are what they call like introductory, entry level, beginner level classes. There's not typically something held for the, if you're an experienced dancer, you're not gonna be taking these classes, right? Which is similar to like what we do with sports. If you're an experienced soccer player, you're probably moving on to local clubs, right? Ours is introductory, entry level, recreationally based, right? So these go along those lines. So I did put in, what type of class it was, like at City of Paso, various crafting classes, right? I think if you scroll down Morro Bay, there's a big quilting community in Morro Bay, right? So there are probably 5 or 6 different patchwork and quilting classes held at the Morro Bay communities, right? So yeah, I tried to group them by style and then included some information on what their max is, which really lends itself to know what type of facility they're using, what room they're using in which facility, and then who is responsible for it, right? So in most cases, if you look at City of Morro Bay, City of Paso Robles, City of Atascadero, they all have full-time employees, they have community class coordinators. They have a variety of titles, right? Recreation titles aren't always, they're not always, the same across the board, right? But in most cases, they'll have a full-time employee managing community classes, right? Because it takes a lot of work to get the community class instructor on board, right? There's a lot of onboarding materials. It's like bringing in an employee, although they are I-9'd. So they have to provide their own class, their own materials, has to be incorporated into the cost of the class. And then, you know, in a traditional structure, the instructor has that, the recreation department would take the registration, right? And offer the classroom, right? Or the space for it, the facility. And then in exchange, the instructor gets the 70%, the recreation department or the city gets to keep the 30% to manage that class, right? And the rest of it is, it's posted in their community guide, their activity guide, and away they go, right? So
There's a sort of maybe a shared risk, right?
it's
Like,
a bit of a shared risk.
So if classes, if a new instructor comes around, they wanna offer something new, they pitch the class. There's a risk that it won't happen because they might have a class minimum, it might say here max 50, but maybe it's set up like, hey, we're not gonna do it if there's not 15.
Yeah, there's typically minimums, absolutely, yeah.
And then if if there's not enough people that sign up, then all those registrations are canceled, refunds are issued, and the instructor doesn't actually perform the work. And so that's kind of that sort of shared risk, you know, kind of component. And we listed for Templeton, the classes that were offered in the fall, but we do a few things that work that way. We do, like, our skate and scoot camp are essentially that kind of program where
Yep, oh, I should have listed that, I just didn't list it because it wasn't fall.
that time of year, yeah. So like in the spring and summer, those are held, and same kind of component, there'd be a maximum number of kids that could participate, and then there'd be a sharing of the revenues based on the number of signups, and the instructor would have to agree essentially to what sets the sign-up rate.
Yeah. And in traditional community classes, and I think we have done it as well, most communities do it now, you get the person fingerprinted, right, to make sure they're safe, especially if it's a youth program. It's, you know, typically they're going to either have keys to a facility, that said, most of these facilities are gonna have part-time staff, like, you know, they're minimum wage, entry level, part-time staff to like let people into a facility and deal with that. But they have access to all of these things, right? And so they're typically fingerprinted to make sure they're safe to be doing what they're doing. It's just one of those standard things. And then, yeah, and if there are also aquatics, right? So which is its own bear of a class, right? Aquatics is its own division. Typically in most communities, it's a division under a recreation department. That will be, the requirements for aquatics are insane. So we don't even touch that. We don't have a pool. So, but the requirement is, in fact, Tascadero and Paso both have full-time aquatics coordinators just to deal with it. And get all of and so does the county, to get all of the requirements met for that. So, yeah.
And so these classes, so using preschool as an example of one that we offer, in Templeton, they work differently. The parents register and pay the operator directly. We're not taking registration or we have really no dealings with the parent other than incidental. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
We see them because they come and go, but they don't register with us or anything like that. They deal with the operator directly. We're not taking registration, processing payments, anything like that. They're kind of treated like they're like a renter, and that's how we've traditionally offered things like aerobics or Zumba or other things that have also taken place in that room. Is somebody would say, I want to teach her Zumba, and we say, okay, you go for it. You pay the $25, you post the days of the week you want to hold it, and then it's kind of up to them whether it's successful or not based on the number of persons that participate. We have, not since I've been here, but years ago, we were doing these shared risk classes in a more traditional way. You know, maybe Mel or Natalie, you guys could kind of talk about some of the challenges that we had at the time and kind of maybe why we're not doing it that way presently.
Yeah. So I know a couple of parts. We used to do more of the sort of 70-30 split traditional classes. I think we've had like karate in the past and things like that. It becomes a bit of a bear. We're not understaffed, but we're short-staffed, right? We don't have a ton of staff like other cities will, right? So when you're working a community class, there have to be guarantees that, people have paid, right? That their check went through, that all of these requirements were met, right? Before we can even pay the instructor, right? And that is taxing on everybody, right? Like, and historically, there was just one person to check that, right? And so that can be a bit of a bear on top of whatever the regular duties of that person, which are water bills and all of the things, right? We also used to have childcare. I kind of mentioned it when we were in the youth center. We had after-school care, and then summer daycare program. That was actually one of the big things Templeton says what the rec department was kind of founded on was I worked it in high school, right? We used to be at the park, in fact, all summer long. Like, so I think it was like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. It was
Like a
insane.
day camp, like a
A day camp, yeah. In the summer, and then after school, we would just go to the park, and if it was raining, we would come into this room because there weren't that many kids. And that became a bit cumbersome as well, for some of the same reasons. There were a lot of, frankly, I think there were two accounting systems going on, and one was not being shown to CSD. And so there wasn't a lot of checks and balances specific to that. There were people that were allowed to be participating in the program that weren't paying their bills, right? So when we kind of started to really take a closer look at that, the cost to deliver the service was intense, and we weren't receiving the payments for it. We ended up having to recover some of the costs through collections, like small collections stuff. But it was a lot. So I think so simultaneous to finding this out, it was about 07, 08, somewhere around there.
It started at the end of 07, so like 08, 09.
Yeah. So simultaneously, the big shakeup of 08, right? The schools stopped busing, right? So what ended up happening was traditionally we had children's garden that had the littlest kids, right? The young preschoolers, and then the maybe elementary level kids, right? K1, 2, right? The kids that go to TES. And we had some of those kids, but the youth center ended up having primarily 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, right? The VES kids, right? And those kids would get bussed over from Vineyard, and they would come to the elementary school. We would walk over, we'd pick them up, we would walk them back to the rec center, and away we go. Well, in 08, when the economic downturn happened, the schools stopped busing. And so parents had to find a way to get their child from Vineyard out to back home or wherever. And it didn't typically end up with, grandma or whoever picking up the kid and dropping them off at the youth center. It was just pick them up and take them home, right? So our numbers went down. And then we found out this sort of nightmare accounting thing. And so it was just a bit of a perfect storm where we ended up needing to close the program. So yeah, it was honestly, it was a big loss to the community, but I don't think there was really at that time any other option. So yeah. And on top of that, like they were all the kids that worked for us, right? They were staff kids, right? So they were all on staff, right? So even now, if you look at restarting a program, we had $16.90, right, to start, because it's the new minimum wage, January 1. And there was a full-time coordinator that went along with that, and all of the things. So yeah, the cost to deliver this service became tremendous.
That really wouldn't have been a community class type program, but just the district offering district staffed after school program or day camp kind of thing, which lots of places do or didn't do, but not necessarily with a shared risk, right? In that case, the district would have all the risk, all the costs, all the revenue.
I mean, as far as the programs, I know you raised the concern with being able to monitor whether people have paid or not, but but that was several years ago. I think maybe with technology things have changed, with Venmo and Zelle or whatever, or credit card.
We don't use,
We don't do those.
Okay, but at least with credit card,
Yeah, so to me, what I see is one of the biggest problems, just with everything that we have tried, we don't get a lot of people interested in like wreath making, for example. You get, 5 or 6 people maybe to join when there's gotta be at least 10 or 12, and then you're having to refund everybody the money. Or what, whatever, and it's just, when you have 5 or 6 classes like that, you try to start up and then you're refunding all the money, it's like, okay, what classes are worthwhile
Yeah.
to go after?
Yeah.
Cause it's staff time, sitting there refunding money and whatnot, so.
Do we, so on the chart you made, the max, of participants is listed, do we know, like, do you have any idea about which ones are filling up? Which ones are super popular, where,
Look at the other communities.
Yeah, I don't. I know, City of Atascadero, for example, aquatics, CPR, yoga, and the art classes, youth, adult, watercolor, and other art. Those classes are traditionally offered repeatedly, right? So I have to imagine that they're more popular,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Under City of Paso, I know the Lego Labs, and I think they do a Lego at Atascadero, but I think I think they're off season, right? The art painting party, which is like the sip and paint kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
classes, right? And dog training, yoga, if you scroll down, there's like Zumba, those classes, and the karate class. Those ones are offered repeatedly. I don't, the youth evolution sports classes are offered repeatedly.
I mean, we had Zumba for a long
We
time.
had Zumba for a long
I
time.
don't know why it ended up.
She just got tired.
Yeah, I think, so what ends up happening is because there's this shared risk.
She retired more.
In this
Yeah.
sense, is that there's not enough. If the class goes, but you only have 4 participants, you decide at some point that I'm only making, $3 an hour doing this
Right.
instruction. So the instructor essentially decides whether they want to continue to operate it or not. They set the minimums. The room obviously would set the maximums, but the instructor would say, hey, I'm not doing unless I get X number of participants.
Right.
That they are, it's, yeah, in some ways a hobby, but in other ways it's like a little side gig.
Yeah.
For-
Well, it sounds like, changing the strategy in terms of how the other, entities do it with like the 70-30 split would make sense to only do that if you had established the demand first, right?
Right.
But are there ways and things that we can do to encourage more instructors within the way that we do it currently to come and offer classes? So even though, without changing it and having the shared responsibility where they would still be considered, where they're renting the space from us, for some of these subjects that are super popular and that are filling up, I wonder if there's a way for us to sort of solicit or invite those folks more proactively to come use our space.
I mean, yeah, I admittedly haven't spent a lot of time on it. It's more of folks are interested in hosting a class, I give them the information,
Mhm.
right? And then it's frankly, on them to decide if they want to be a renter to facilitate the class or not. We do, help promote the class in various ways, like the youth art class we send out through the wreath making class, we send out through our lists and all of that. And I let them know that, right? But it is definitely more of have them come to me
Yeah.
than me seek them out, right?
Would-
Or us seek them out.
I think there's 2 issues, but that's the case, and maybe because this doesn't happen a lot, there's not a lot of knowledge that it's available
Available.
option. I guess the second thing is, it's very different than the split where there's really no risk initially. The instructor is only risking their calendar. In other words, if I said, I wanna teach basket weaving, don't sign up, by the way, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8, and we establish a calendar and the district reserves it and I reserve it, and we go through registration. If nobody signs up, it's just canceled. I haven't paid anything. But under this, the way we operate, the instructor is gonna say, okay, it's gonna be $25 an hour for the room, for these 2 hours a night, and so you're gonna go however long you're gonna go before you go, well, this is a money loser because I'm it's costing me more money than I'm bringing in. And I know, like in the case of Zumba, because the other thing that makes this difficult is we don't staff those buildings at night. So when the instructors lock themselves out and set the alarm off, they call me.
Right,
And
right.
so like, yeah, Zumba was one that happened a lot, and same with 4-H. Where they,
Oh,
yeah, some of the rabbit got locked inside once.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's like 3 people. They were doing like Zumba, I think at the end was 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, they
So,
were not busy.
so she's gotta the instructor has to overcome the cost of the facility before they can make any money. It really has to be fairly popular to make that work.
But do we allow folks to cancel their reservation?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Up
They always
until
pay for it.
up until how?
So like,
close?
for example, with the wreath making class that we had to cancel.
Yeah.
She was going to come in, like if there were, cause it was on a Saturday, right? And she comes in on Wednesdays anyway. So if we had enough signups, she was gonna pay on Wednesday, right? The Wednesday before the Saturday. That was sort of our drop dead, like, are we gonna do it or not, right? And it's no, there's no skin off our back because there was no other program trying to be
Yeah.
offered in there at that time.
Right.
Right? So it's not like people are knocking down the doors for Saturday at 10 a.m.,
Well,
right?
that's what I'm wondering, like, even if it gets canceled, a class, has to get canceled, is it often that other folks were vying for this space, that we
That's
turned away or?
No, we haven't risked anything, but if it's like 0 registration, it's easy, right? If no one signed up, we're just gonna cancel class. Problem solved, but if 3 people sign up, that instructor now has to decide, does it make sense for me to proceed or not, or I'll do it once or twice and let's see if this grows.
Right.
Like in the case of Zumba, like the times that I was there, and I wasn't a Zumba participant. But it was a very small
Oh, yeah, yeah.
turnout, like 3 people would show up, and so
So I
like.
think their standard was closer to 5, right? But then it did definitely start dwindling. Yeah.
So, if you're gonna pay $25 and there's only, let's say there's 5 people, they've gotta be paid at least $5 just to cover the cost of the room before the instructor's making any money. So he or she's gotta get $10 a class out of somebody to make it worthwhile, or fill the room. So the Zumba did go on for quite a while though, right?
That was for years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then COVID, I think, was really what canceled it, kind of put the final nail in the coffin. She tried to start it up again after COVID and it never really took off, right? So.
But for sure, the facilities don't, other than the preschool hours, those rooms have a lot of capacity in terms of what they use. There are other uses, so Mel, you host like this soccer board.
The
meetings
advisory
there.
committee meetings, yeah,
Yeah.
TRF,
There's other uses that aren't rentals necessarily.
random holiday events.
Somebody used to do homework.
We had homework club there. It's the same preschool teacher.
Yeah.
Tutoring.
Would it, like, with your colleagues in other rec departments in the area,
Oh, that's a good one.
Bigger.
It's been.
would it be professionally frowned upon for you to, share vendors, share instructors? Would that be, do you think that they would?
Like ask for their instructor list.
Yeah, or
Oh,
like,
sure.
or
Yeah,
like,
Absolutely.
like,
They would give me everything to run community class. I have all of their, in fact, there's like contracts and policies and stuff. It's a
yeah,
bag
just
borrow
like,
and steal industry.
ask them
Absolutely.
like, do you, of your huge offerings, are there ones that like are booked up so fast that, you have a wait list for, that you think that,
Yeah, I could talk to them about that.
'Cause that would be- I mean,
Some-
I feel like that would be a low hanging fruit.
Sure.
If we know that there's an instructor who's already offering classes somewhere nearby and that they're so popular that they're doing it repeatedly and because I know like I've looked at some of the like kids dance classes before. I think the dog training one, like their registrations are closed. Like they fill up. And so I wonder if those instructors would be interested in and leading.
I think so. So like Kathy Crop, I happen to know, runs the dog training. She already does Saturday mornings across the street, right? She has hosted at our buildings for years. And there was a very specific purpose. I think she was training dogs to be able to walk on the flooring, right? Dogs that would typically go to hospitals and make sure that they were
Oh.
comfortable walking on that type of flooring.
The tile,
right?
yeah.
Tile, right? So, yeah, I could talk to her, I think,
They won't do puppy classes like at a public park, cause the dogs aren't
But that's.
polo, yeah, parvo.
exactly.
So those are usually indoors.
Those are indoors. And so I don't know that she would have the capacity to add more, right? Cause I think she has a pretty robust training program, right? But yes, it would definitely be something I could talk to everybody about what their most popular ones are, right?
Yeah.
And if there was a capacity to add something like that to our facility,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes there's limitations in scheduling and, there's a variety of limitations, right? But yeah, that would be.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah,
for
we've
the
done that
ones
in the past too.
That don't have like technology requirements, you know what I mean, like the paint, like the watercolors and yoga and.
Right. I mean, yeah,
And people could also do this out of the community centers. We have the same kind of program where you could rent the
Right,
facility and
exactly.
run it. Probably the biggest difference between us and these other, at least the cities that are listed here, is those facilities are staffed facilities. So
Right.
there's somebody there to clean the bathroom, there's somebody there to make sure the
Yes.
toilet paper's in, somebody to set the alarm off, there's somebody to change the temperature if the room's too hot. There's a person at a counter to help
to handle all of the
customers.
things.
Yeah, and as you can see, we had Bethany, who's our main customer service person over there stocking.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's that, I think is the biggest dilemma is because the instructor takes on a lot more responsibility when they try to offer something here, is the facility is just a room, it's not, there's no assistance. Everywhere else you go, there's gonna be a city staff member there I worked this, again, a long time ago, but, worked these buildings where people are renting the building, you're helping them unload their stuff and checking them out and giving them a mop and when they make a mess, you're helping them, figure out how to clean it up and there's a resource that's available real time. And that's one of the things that the instructor has to be pretty
Informed about that.
yeah, pretty self-contained, like they gotta do it themselves, they've gotta open the building themselves, they've gotta alarm the building.
But then they keep all the
Correctly.
profit for themselves too. They
Yes,
don't have to share.
yes, right, they're not split, and let's say it takes off, then exactly. And so maybe the programs that we do have, so we didn't talk about it, but maybe it's now called
We have
Music
couple-
Melodies.
We have hired more staffing for parks maintenance, so I don't know if they'll be able to do.
This is typically gonna be nights and weekends.
Yeah,
There's no
what we're
whole-
talking about would be like, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock start times, right? PM, right, where we don't currently have staff on duty at that time.
So that's when we have users in the community center, it's
Yeah.
weekends and these classes like Zumba was evenings or early evenings. It's after work, after school kind of stuff. So, but yeah, we'd have to, and then again, I think it's one thing to be on call, that could be possible. Somebody available a phone call away. But again, in most of the community centers are gonna have there's city staff facilities. The lights are all on, nobody has to mess with the key. That is all taken care of by the city staff member. So there's someone locking and unlocking and whatnot.
Yeah,
So it's a
maybe-
little more intimidating.
Maybe starting with classes that are offered, during the daytime, during weekdays where we do have staff.
Yeah, for sure. So like when we did the book room, that's an example of one that was successful reasonably, that before the TCLA opened up the library, they rented our facility as the book room. After, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week or something like that. They got a very preferred rental rate. And it was kind of that way where a lot of times they couldn't staff it, they didn't have the people there, but it was a hands-off kind of operation. We were already there, so it kind of made sense that we could, if somebody really needed help, we could help them because we were already there. It didn't require unlocking and locking as it was during the day hours. It's just a different, it's something that we were able to accommodate. So it's just like preschool kind of too, it's easy, so Providence Apple preschool, but there's people generally there.
Are we allowed to use, is it Lens Place, the big room? Are we allowed to use Lens Place when the preschool is in operation?
No, we can't have unfingerprinted adults in the facility. We could if we kept
No,
them
there's
in one
doors.
room. Yeah, if we kept them in one room, the problem is the restroom. right? So they would have to be escorted into a restroom, right? Like the kids, right? They wouldn't just be able to go, like, go wash your hands, right? Go potty, whatever. They would have to be escorted because that restroom is in like such a main little thoroughfare, right? For use, so
And so they're there Monday, Wednesday,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Mornings only.
And only 8 to noon, right? So we've had, you know, yeah, we'd be able to have anything in there. We had the book club, in fact, or the book room. They were able to start staffing it, like, I think we told them 12:30, just to give a little leeway, right? But they were often there by noon. So,
So, yeah, for sure, daytime stuff would be easier for somebody, there'd be some assistance or some, you know, somebody in the building to help them with, or help them do that. But, yeah, we could reach out to other communities. The program is just handled differently. In the case of those associates, they're taking the registration, there's this sort of shared risk, or I guess limited risk. Shared, you know, sort of split the registration fees.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be interesting trying to get. It just, you know, if we could just make it available for the community, that would be additional service that we offer. But, so, as far as your time that you work, so you have Mondays off, like the whole parks team, they have Mondays off, correct? So you guys work on Saturday,
correct, we're Tuesday through Saturday.
Tuesday, so you have the possibility to do your class to it, like on
On
Saturday.
Saturdays? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's like the wreath making class. So it was gonna be easy because we're already working, right? So, yeah. And we can let them in, and we're not working in the building necessarily. We're often on the fields or courts, but, you know, letting them in or whatever.
Yeah, there's people generally working on Saturdays during the
Yeah.
day.
That would be a nice time too.
yeah.
All right, any questions? Okay, all right. Can't see any public?
No.
All right, okay, anything else? All right. TCSD's 50th anniversary discussion. Man, a lot of people.
Oh.
We were talking about it last.
So, this item is on this meeting's agenda because it was on the admin and finance committee meeting agenda on a couple of occasions, and that committee thought it would be like a desirable approach to plan a 50th anniversary celebration in partnership with another organization, and it be a public facing kind of activity. I'm using the term street fair. I'm not sure that's what was, you know, necessarily envisioned in the concept at the time originally that was discussed was perhaps it makes sense to kind of partner with Templeton Stronger. That's kind of the new group that was formed as a result of the Feed and Grain Fire that put on the September events. And there was some desire of that group to make that kind of at least the street fair component, and again, that's my term, street fair, it's probably, it may have another name, an ongoing thing each year, not necessarily centered around just the Feed and Grain Fire. And so that was kind of priority, or option number one is something to be desirous, and option number two was perhaps, if that was not gonna materialize, perhaps partner with the Founders Day or the Museum for Founders Day and participate there, since those are two events that are already kind of going, may already be kind of going. And the reason it got transitioned, or it was thought that it made sense to go to this committee, is if it's a sort of a public facing thing, may make more sense for the committee that's going to provide insight be the Parks Recreation Committee, because that's what Parks and Recreation
Sort of
folks
what we
do,
do.
Yeah.
as opposed to the Finance and Admin Committee. But the makeup of the committees isn't all that different. As a matter of fact, you two persons were on the Finance Committee when this came up a few months back.
Oh, that's right.
So
That was something, yeah.
but just to get and then sort of frame it further, the request of the admin committee, who kicked it to this committee, was that to maybe report back if we had any like solid information about the Templeton Stronger Group, and Natalie had some contact with Abby Allen, who's kind of a spearheaded.
Yeah, so, I think, that they would like to have, another event, street fair type thing, in September, whenever they decide. And I think they would be okay with us having some sort of presence there. But I don't know how big of a collaboration type thing, so, I don't think they've delved into it too much of whether or not. I know they want to do it, but I don't know, I don't think they really know for sure if they're 100% a go with it. So, but I think they would be favorable for us to do something with them. We just don't know how.
Are they just nervous that we're gonna like take their party?
No, I don't think they know if they're gonna have a party.
How about, I mean, we have a very successful concerts in the park. We try to like, I don't know, add a week to that and use that.
I don't know if we can add a week, but we can dedicate a week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Interestingly, Bree mentioned last night, it's also Money Mills' 50th anniversary. And so we could like tag on to the end of
Oh, wow.
concerts and celebrate with Monty.
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe you.
Or do something throughout the concert season, right? It's our 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Every night can be like
Maybe have a little.
whatever it
extra,
is, right? Exactly.
You know, with the
Giveaways
concerts.
and things like that.
Or we can talk to the vendors about like, you know, free something,
Yes.
right? For each night can be, you know, hey, it's Templeton's 50th anniversary and tonight you get a free ice cream cone or
Maybe
whatever
we
it
have-
is.
I mean, I know we have the Park and Rec or your booth there, but maybe we could have another booth there. That's.
Yeah, we have a CSD.
We can do that anytime, we can set up another.
Absolutely.
What I will say is, there's a, so you're at the Concert of the Park does a great job of bringing people together into the park. They generally don't mingle much, they don't, I mean,
That's
they go to a couple of the food vendors. We've tried to do information booths before there, they just weren't, it just wasn't a very good
Yeah.
venue for, most people have a plan. They're coming with their friends, they brought dinner and drinks, they listen to music, it's a little bit loud already. But there's ways to celebrate, but it may not be as interactive as, you know, it may not be as educational, I guess I'd say. But that is 100% our event, we have total control over it. And absolutely, we could do things during concerts in the park, and there are a lot of families that attend. It's a all ages kind of event.
Yeah, I mean, we could add some sort of a activity that people
Maybe
go.
you rent a bounce house or
Yeah,
something.
we could have
Kids or whatever, you know, yeah.
kids in the, yeah, absolutely. Or a float in the parade on the 4th of July, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do
I was
something
thinking, yeah, doing that too.
with that.
Because I think, yeah, and I just think September, October may start to get a little bit challenging too with the holidays and, you know, if you don't have outdoor activities, what the weather is gonna be like, so if we could something combine it with, you know, concerts.
I mean, Abby with, the market used to do the free ice cream.
Exactly what I was
We could
thinking.
do something like that at one of the concerts, like it's.
In fact, I think Abby used to have the teachers come and serve the ice cream and it was like you know, teachers are back to work and, you know,
Maybe the
thank you
board of
for giving me
directors.
summer
Oh.
off. So we could have the board of directors serve ice cream Sundays kind of idea, right? And you get a lot of FaceTime with people,
Yeah.
right? Which could be, you know, really positive thing since Templeton has that issue where nobody knows who does what, right?
Yeah.
So,
You know, the office is right across the
Yeah.
street, that
Yeah.
class, where's the
Yeah.
office? Right there.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking, right? And that's frankly a really minimal expense, right? You get a bunch of buckets of ice cream.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to bet Abby will help you out with like at cost stuff, right? You can order it like whatever without the markup, right? So,
Yeah, you just make it fun, you know,
Yeah.
just have.
and I can help you with your $10 food handlers cards, because if you're scooping that ice cream to the community, you're gonna have to have your food handlers.
Have one.
All right,
Right.
that's because I did not have my restaurant manager.
There's the snack bar for the Lions Clubs.
No, yeah, so.
Oh, no?
I'm a barista.
Coffee bar, coffee bar.
So.
I did want to point out the committee, the admin finance committee, in addition to taking this part of it to this committee or requesting that you accept it, I suppose, since they really don't have the delegation authority. Also recommended that the district, pay for or budget for banners to go up that
Yeah.
celebrate the 50th anniversary. And so we're gonna incorporate that into the mid-year budget adjustment. The board will have to approve it, obviously. They're not cheap, but we could have banners that would probably come up and down throughout the whole year
Yeah.
or most of 2026.
And then I can't remember, when I came on, this was back in 2016, so I can't remember whether I got a jacket with that was.
You did.
because-
Jacket.
That was because, was it because of the voice?
Yes.
It was the
Okay.
voice.
Yeah.
We gave, all employees in the
I
board.
still have mine, those
I
good.
think
to-
we gave, and we had these little magnets that everybody got in their mailers.
Yeah, it's a really nice
Not
jacket.
just with like emergency
Very
options.
Yes.
It's a great jacket.
Like Kenny got a Carhartt,
On it.
Carhartt style, it was actually Carhartt, the brown Carhartt.
Something like that to me would, I think would be
You
cool
did.
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wore it last time, and yeah, a couple of firefighters, oh, we want that, so.
There's only like a couple of us.
That's what that one I was saying.
It's been 9
Yeah.
it's
I
been
have
9
the
years.
green one,
Been 9 years.
two-tone green.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, and it's really nice.
it is a nice jacket.
At least at that time it was
It's
like.
water resistant too,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So yeah, man, I would like to
Wow.
do that for staff too. Give them some, celebrate.
Some swag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there like intention of like putting money in the budget for it that's not coming from Parks and Rec?
Parks and
No, I mean, we would need to budget for.
Coming out of admin, coming out of water, it's coming from water, right?
Budget.
I mean, water's got the money, guys.
Any of these items would be
We are a water district.
budgeted for. If something was gonna take place between now and June 30th, it would need to be incorporated into the mid-year budget review. If it was gonna take place after that, it could go into next year's budget. The banner was the one specific item that was requested to sort of start early. Since 2026 is our 50th anniversary.
And the banners would be on Main Street, the both.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about one or both locations. We have somewhat better luck at this southern location.
Okay, but that'd be across the over
Across the,
highway.
yeah, over Main Street.
Yeah, okay.
If there's a smaller banner too, we could put one up at the rack. You know, just, they don't know we're a part of you, so.
That's good, great, yeah. I think I would make it a little bit simpler, just trying to find what.
So you're thinking maybe something that's related to concerts in the park,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, so yeah, well, and people are there already, you
Yeah.
guys do a fantastic
Yeah.
job.
We could
Yeah.
potentially tie it in with like a 4th of July thing too, cause, you know, I don't know if we wanna. I don't know, like, I'm not saying like an event necessarily, but with the concert at 4th of July, right? Because a lot of people tend to come and, you know, but I don't know if that'll get a little murky if we're doing any like annual anniversary for, you know, the fire, right? But it could be like a
Yeah, that's
thank you to the
like-
community kind of thing, right? If we wanted to tie it into that, we could do it at a different date as well, it'd be fine, but.
yeah,
I would just do a float.
I think we do a float for sure. Let's
Oh,
go.
yeah.
We're doing a float.
in the parade.
Yeah.
We're doing a float
I
with
did
the
say
budget.
the temple fire float when we were doing Measure In.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good flow.
I'm sure we got a guy with a truck and a trailer. Right?
Brandon.
Well, he'll be on the truck, right, for the fire.
The district
Just
has
borrow
a
his-
truck and.
Okay.
Yeah, we
That
got
was-
trailers.
that was
We got
exactly, we have
trailers.
one, right?
Yeah. We do.
Okay,
I'm gonna start decorating now.
we'll start,
Any other?
we can get guitar shaped fans at concerts in the parks, Templeton CSD 50th
Oh,
anniversary.
yeah. See, yeah, giveaways.
Fans
That's
with,
those things we could do.
Yeah, it's cute.
and they can have the schedule on it too.
Oh, didn't you guys do that one year? Okay.
But this year it says 50th anniversary. It's
Yeah.
exciting. We did that years ago. It's been a while. People actually still ask.
That was pretty cool.
They're fun. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
good.
great.
I got lots of ideas for this.
It's good.
Work on some more.
All right, next item is Everest Park Improvement Plan update.
Lori.
You know what, there's really, I can update you quickly, the questions, look at Lori.
No changes.
So you may have seen already in Lori Azim's engineering report, for this month, it was part of your Tuesday board packet. That we think we have all but one of the comments addressed. There's one issue that's holding up resubmittal, and that is that neither of the sets of bleachers at the park meet ADA requirements for multiple reasons. One, the easy one is they sit too low. They're like an inch too low. The front bench needs to be 19 inches off the ground. We think there's not a difficult solution to fix that. The second and more complex issue is there needs to be ADA accessibility to the frontage of each set of bleachers in order for them to comply.
Yeah.
The plan did not accommodate that. So the proposed solution is really two separate things. Our designers are going to add a section of sidewalk, concrete sidewalk that meets ADA requirements from the planned sidewalk nearest the first field, Shelby Field, to the frontage of the bleachers. It's not a very big addition, but it still has to be designed and incorporated into the plans, and then constructed. And then for the second bleacher, it's probably going to be removal of the set of bleachers. There is no ADA sidewalk that's near that section of bleachers, and we had designated if that path gets built with like DG that it was not going to be considered an accessible pathway. So there would not be a way of doing so without some pretty major additions to the project. So that's what we're working on now, and as soon as the design team finishes it, we'll resubmit to the county. But
The second bleachers would be removed?
yes.
So, and then adding this concrete sidewalk, is that gonna have any other effects, like, stormwater drainage or quality of water? I mean, I don't.
It has an incremental adjustment, right? There's more concrete, and so, yeah.
Can we just remove the first one too, and then?
I mean, you could remove the first one, but the first one has a big shade cover over it, and it's.
Always accidentally, it comes back again.
That's the plan for field two.
So, I think one of the things that was kind of frustrating is really, that shade cover is like just 6 years old. It was put in, we got a permit for it. It's one of the few things we got permitted. But at the time, the county didn't assess anything around it, so they didn't make us resolve this for the bleachers. And now they are. They basically say the plans we asked to kind of deal with this separately. The county said, no, the plans must show how you're achieving compliance. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Okay, all right, any questions?
There's no way to like extend then the approved bleachers, you know what I mean, like to stack so we don't lose that much seating.
Like put them next to it right next.
Oh, you wouldn't actually lose seating with this. There's no change to the
you
availability of
said-
seating.
That's on field two. The second field is the
Oh.
one we would remove the bleachers because we're not going to have an ADA accessible path
Way to it.
that far, right? It'll be DG, which is, I mean, in some communities it is, but apparently not in SLO County. So.
And there isn't.
And then there would have to be the
There's
path.
no sidewalk
to-
from it needs to.
On field two, yeah.
So, yeah, those bleachers would like temporarily be removed, and maybe they might seasonally be somewhere nearby or stored nearby.
Very close.
Put them in the reservoir.
They'll be pretty close.
We couldn't keep them at the location without building an ADA accessible path and changing the height, and it would cost a lot of additional money, so. So if we get slapped on the wrist, then they have to be, I mean, maybe later on they'll have to be just permanently removed, but they're not set in foundation, they're just set on the ground. So moving them is not terribly difficult.
It was probably the skate park kids.
And you have to
They got
find
it
bleachers.
back.
Remove both of them and. Okay, all right. All right, so that's done, and then next item is programs updates, Supervisor Jeff.
Alright, we are frankly in a sweet spot for programs right now because it's holidays, and so things are starting to potentially a little bit calm down. We're done with soccer. We have all-star teams happening. They're doing whatever they're doing. We don't manage that much. There's minimal administrative management. But the teams are practicing at the fields right now. We do charge them for field use because they're not a rec department program. Actually, I charge them for lights, but works out nicely for us. That said, we do celebrate them. So the girls U10 took first place in their tournament last weekend. Every other team got second place out of 6 or more teams participating in every division. So that's pretty exciting. There's another tournament this weekend in Los Osos, and we'll see how they do. We are in basketball mode, as mentioned earlier. It is 357 teams, something like that. Excuse me, 357 participants
Yeah.
That's a lot of teams.
on 47 teams, much more manageable. So they're practicing all over. I'm sure you've seen them out and about during the after school hours. They're at Vineyard Elementary, at the middle school outdoor courts, the high school outdoor courts, our backyard outdoor courts. I had to actually leave the Christmas party last night because the lights went off on them. I forgot to change them for a coach that had moved his practice. So I had to go out there and turn the lights back on manually. And it's really exciting to hear a bunch of 5th and 6th grade boys cheer very loudly as soon as lights go on. They didn't know I was there, so the lights just go on and they're like, yeah, it's fantastic. So it was another positive thing. Softball and t-ball registration is open. That program, the assessments are January 31st, so we'll be starting that program up pretty quickly, but after the holidays. Same with basketball, right? We start the practices early, but there's the winter breaks in the middle, and so we don't start games till January 10th. So yeah, all our little, I don't know, community building athletic, entry-level athletic participation things, they're super cute. You should come down and watch basketball at the high school like 9 a.m. and watch these little 1st and 2nd graders learn how they operate. It is adorable. We had a holiday event last Friday, a week ago, with Santa and everything, and that was really well attended.
Great.
I was really impressed. Folks showed up for that, so yeah, that
Some
was like.
stayed a long time too.
And some stayed a while. Even some of the middle schoolers showed up for that, man. I love
Yeah, cute.
this little town. So we're likely to be doing that again. We'll scale it up in a different way, see what we can do to make some, minor modifications, maybe some more planning ahead of time.
More
But that
cookies.
was more cookies, more hot chocolate. Maybe we'll sell it
No,
all
we
hot
were
chocolates.
good on hot chocolate.
Yeah,
We would have ran out of whipped cream.
but yeah, that's,
And marshmallows.
that's all right. More marshmallows. Some kid just took a bunch of marshmallows and whipped
One
cream.
kid asked us for, no, can I get the hot chocolate without the hot chocolate?
Yeah, just all the other stuff.
The whipped cream, please.
So, yeah, it was
That
super
was
fun.
fun.
It was fun, and it was, minimal overhead, right? We had a lot of things donated. Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Abby at the market, and Jeff for coming to help out. A lot of the activities that they were doing were purchased on, points cards and things, so it was really just a great time, so.
It was really
yeah.
cute, and the ornaments my kids made are on my tree now, so.
No, I love it. That's awesome. So we'll be doing something similar, I think. Well, that'll become an.
It was nice because it was an afternoon event, so that's a lot easier on, kind of a drop in, no
Right.
registration, low overhead. And I think if we can incorporate like doing some of it in the, kind of make the community center and the rec center.
Yeah, if we can kind of.
Spread that out a little bit and, maybe.
Put a food truck in the middle right there.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was nice too, I think there were some evening events going on in other locations, so some people were able to attend both, which, something I heard, so, yeah. Or frankly, just come to ours and be like, no, you already saw Santa things. Like the backdrops were donated by our picture company that does the pictures for all our sports events and stuff, so, yeah, it really came together really nicely. We got a lot of donations
Yeah, how
and
many
stuff.
people actually,
I'm sorry?
do you have any idea like how many?
We
people-
think about 120,
Wow, yeah.
based on,
Kids.
Yeah.
Plus
yeah.
their parents.
plus they're adults,
Yeah,
right?
that
Through a
was just
2-hour
one cookie
window.
Giveaway.
Yeah,
Cause I'd made 6 dozen cookies and then we had 10, uh-huh,
yeah,
and then we had 10 from that and then the box of graham crackers, so at
and,
least,
yeah,
yeah.
So, I mean, they went, man, kids were pumped. We might just do graham cracker cookies next year because.
We did about more than 100.
Not that they weren't delicious,
More than
so I
100
didn't get one.
More than
They ran
100
out.
cups of hot cocoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. We did have a little internal staff, like we do for all of our events, right? We had a little internal staff meeting about the notes, since we have notes for next year and a calendar reminder to open up that document come October, so. Yeah, so it was really well attended, I think. As I thought they would be, the community is hungry for a holiday event, right? So, I'm really glad we did.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and now we're heading into vacation season, so Bree's gonna be off a little bit. John's gone for the next 3 weeks after this. He saves all his vacation for one time. I take a few days off here and there, and then I'm going on vacation in January, so, yeah.
Excellent.
That's what's happening.
All right, wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. The programs update and the last item, waste management, contamination charges discussion. That's just-
Jessica,
Jessica,
Hello, back to talk some trash.
favorite pastime.
Probably gonna see you later on tonight.
Yeah, and I'll see you in a couple hours, exactly.
Oh, is that tonight?
Yeah, it's tonight. It's like my favorite event of the year.
You got the shrimp?
There's always gonna be trash can shrimp. And I don't have to get up and talk in front of everyone at the event this year, so stoked for that. But I just wanted to touch bases today and get the committee's input on a proposal for upcoming contamination fees. So we meet with Jeff and Justin quarterly with our district manager, our operations team, just to kind of have these, hey, how we doing? How can we do better, right? But generally, I try and look at ways that we can also make improvements within our existing franchise agreement. So something that I've been looking at across the board for all of my franchise agreements that I oversee is contamination monitoring, right? So I think last time I was here, I talked to you guys about our smart truck technology and some things that we're doing with as far as contamination and overage, like noticing. And right now, did everyone get a copy to review this?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
okay.
it's also right.
Okay, great. So I'll just do a brief little overview. I'm sure you all had a chance, but right now we only have a contamination charge in our franchise agreement and our pricing for commercial organics. That is the only contamination that anyone is being charged a fee for when it occurs. Otherwise, people are just receiving notices with the educational information, right? So we would like to talk about the process of establishing a contamination rate. And it doesn't have to be a big rate. It doesn't have to be anything particularly, but our goal here is to start the conversation, get the committee's opinions on the best policy and the best way to go about this. So as we've previously talked, right, a lot of times, like I always say, you can't force people to read. So whether we're emailing or we're mailing out these educational letters, people are like, I'm on auto pay, put it in their recycle, right? So whether it's reaching them, it's being absorbed, and a change is actually happening, it's hard to say. So every month when I send Jeff our contamination reports, those reports continue to grow. And as AI and smart truck technology is getting better, we're catching more contamination. It's being tracked better. It's being documented. And now we're seeing we need to figure out something to do with it and how to make it better, how to really reach people. So I put together this quick little overview here. And as you can see, the commercial organic contamination charge that's already in our contract is $44.38 a month. Now, this is just for commercial businesses that have organic containers. A lot of them aren't even being used for straight food waste unless they're a restaurant or a food generator. A lot of our commercial customers within the district, they simply have them for their landscapers to use. So they aren't necessarily contaminating their organics on a regular basis. It's leaves and things that they rake up from the trimmings and things of that nature. When we do see it, currently, it's generally any sort of delis or restaurants that may be putting plastic or non-organic materials in their organic spends. So as we move further along in this process too, I would be happy to pull reporting and we can kind of find out how frequently this is being charged. That wasn't what today's about. It's mostly just to have a conversation. So we haven't brought this to our financial advisors asking to come up with rates or anything. I don't have any established rates to propose to you today, but I just want to talk about it. So as you can see in the letter, so we've got a couple different ways that we could go about a contamination implementation method. And some of my other municipality and our franchises, when we've rolled out this strategy, we've done a straight like probationary period where we give them 90 days of warning notices saying, hey, effective April 1st, or, you know, April Fool's Day wouldn't be a very funny day to do that, but effective on this date, you will now be charged for contamination, right? And it would also share recycling, sorting information purposefully to educate the customer at that point, but also forewarn them that in the future, after this date, you're gonna have a charge if this continues, right? So that's one way we can go about it. The other way to go about it would be like a 3 strikes you're out method. So one of my other municipalities chose that option and it tends to work pretty great in my opinion. I think that it was even more effective than the probationary period because they received 2 notices and both of those notices saying, hey, you guys are contaminating your recycle, you're contaminating your green waste. On the 3rd offense that this happens, you will be charged, and every offense after that in a 12-month period. So there's a few different ways. I think they're both decent ways to go about implementation, but it really just depends on what you all feel and your input is going to be on what you think is better for our community here in Templeton. And it doesn't have to be a harsh fee, right? We just want to get people's attention. We want to make it better. We want diversion to be better. We want contamination to be better. We want to get ahead of any CalRecycle requirements that are going to come back down on us in the future and as the district in the future. And so I just want to start that. Also, at the end of my document here, I did a bunch of research on different cities in our surrounding areas, from Atascadero to Paso, SLO County unincorporated. So Waste Management Services, City of Atascadero. We also service SLO County unincorporated. Of course, we don't have Paso Robles, that's Paso Waste. But I just wanted to give you a reference. Some of these fees are really steep. And not saying that that's what we have to do for this district, but I wanted you to have a reference as to what some other places are doing. So I'm open to feedback, ideas, opinions, anything that you guys think would be helpful here. Yeah, so Paso's rate structure, they only do PIs every 5 years. So for them to order or put in a contamination, they're going to have to do a very similar process with a Prop 218 and a contract amendment. And so I think that's why, because they just had their 5-year notice, Prop 218 last year. They didn't address any residential contamination, but trust, it's coming. We're all part of the SLO County Garbage Men Association. We meet twice a month with all of the other trash companies in SLO County. And this is a pretty hot topic that we're all dealing with right now. So they're going to be evaluating the same process for people that live in the city of Paso.
So it probably makes sense for me to just explain how the rate setting process works.
Yeah.
So we have a franchise agreement with what was originally with Midstate, now with been assigned to Waste Management. The agreement outlines certain methods for rates to be adjusted, and states that new legislation essentially can trigger a further rate adjustment. The current contamination fee was actually established pre-1383. It's when only certain high volume food waste folks had to get organic service, and that fee was established at that time. When 1383 came in, that we did not further consider contamination charges. The district, Templeton CSD has always followed the requirements of Prop 218. Not every agency does for refuse rates, but around here it's common. And the way the process works is for Midstate and for Waste Management, we would ask them to propose a fee and provide financial calculations to support that fee. That way, we could review that and ensure that we agreed with the calculations. Then all of the property owners and customers have to receive a Prop 218 notification. They would have 45 days to protest that fee at a public hearing in front of the board. Only after that 45-day Prop 218 public hearing had concluded could the board consider then imposing a fee. The Prop 218 notice fee would be sort of a cap. You could approve something smaller or charge something smaller than what that cap was. And you'd be prohibited from implementing the fee if 50% or more property owners or customers of in the case of a property owner not protesting, would protest it. We don't have any real history to concern about it surviving the protest, but that's the process. So if we talk about something now, it takes many months before it would ever become implemented. So if you start talking about this topic now, it would, maybe be the latter part of the year before it would actually be live, even if things move ahead pretty swiftly.
So do we have to do this? I mean, if Waste Management requests it and then we say, no, we don't want to do it, what happens?
Well, we figure out if we have a dispute or not. Maybe Waste Management just says, okay, it's not that important to us, or maybe they press the issue. You would have a defense not to do it because the 1383 has now been the law for quite a while. And if we're relying on 1383 to trigger the fees, that's not exactly new legislation, although we're really still implementing. We're just sort of getting there now. I mean, it's been around for a while, but the standards became more strict. And like, for example, CalRecycle was here just about a month ago or so, a site visit. So we're still in that sort of implementation phase.
Yeah, we do. And then when you say contamination, what does that mean?
So that was.
What percentage of like the recycling needs to be contaminated for the AI to catch it and then, find the individual?
So any sort of contamination being like what we've talked about previously, bagged recyclables, right? Putting garbage bags in the recycle, bagging non-organic items going into the organic waste stream. So those are the two most common contaminants. It's putting plastic in the organics, which is no, you can't do, right? It's not an organic material. And then bagging the recyclables, which I mentioned in here as well. It causes huge processing problems for our recycle sorting systems.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, is education. I mean, it's interesting, like even at IWM, the question came up about shredding papers and, and I think the question was asked of you and you weren't even sure. So it's like, there's a lot of information out there for public. And I just personally think, some of the fees that at least I see here, they're really extreme. And I'm a bit concerned with the overloading charges that we are doing right now. I mean, I think it's really picky. Like I've talked to the couple of representatives at Waste Management, and they've shown me some pictures and like a branch is sticking out. I mean, the lid is closed, a branch is sticking out, and say, well, that's going to be considered overcharge in the future. So I'm just a little bit concerned with the if we allow this overcharge, the contamination fee, how far it's going to go, and I also, as I also said, I just think there's just so much information out there that if we start charging people, I'm just not comfortable with it right now.
The unincorporated areas of SLO and Atascadero, they did a 90-day probationary period or the 3-strike rule? What do they?
SLO County Unincorporated did a 90-day probationary period. Atascadero did no probationary period. It was just effective January 1.
Wow.
And it's been in their contract since the anticipation of SB 1383. So it's already been in their contract now for 4 years.
And, I mean, are the contamination fees affecting the contamination rates? Like, are you seeing a decrease?
So we do, but it also sparks folks to call and question it, right? Which, once they are understanding, oh, I didn't know that I couldn't bag my recyclables. It's also an opportunity on a local level for us to explain, hey, we send out these recycle sorting guides multiple times a year. The information's available. Also using that as an opportunity to educate folks to visit IWMA website. Their website is like the most user-friendly website around. It has a search engine on what do I do with. It tells you exactly what the regulations are here in SLO County. And so generally, when they receive this notice and they're confused, if they were confused and didn't understand by the photo or whatnot, why they received this, that's an opportunity for us to further explain. This is what was put in there. And that's why the probationary period can also be helpful, because people are still receiving those notices and it gives them a chance to question it or be educated before they're actually charged.
And the 3 strikes sort of policy, you get 3 opportunities before you're charged in a 12-month period.
So first 2 are warning system.
Right.
Third occurrence in a 12-month period would have a charge associated with it.
And those first 2 warnings, the individual would receive an explanation about what they did.
Yes.
What was the
Same as the educational warning notices that are being sent now, saying it's contaminated, having the photo. If they have email preferences for communications, they would also get a video from the truck, so they could actually see it being dumped inside the hopper and seeing what the contaminant was. So same process, it would just be the verbiage that changes. Instead of effective after this date, you will be charged for contamination, it would be after 1 more occurrence of contamination, you would be charged a fee. So it's all about how we would word it that changes the method. And every 12-month period, it would reset.
okay, that's okay. I was gonna ask
Yes.
then.
And so you're thinking about doing it for, the organic as well as the recycling?
Yes. And then Jeff and I and Justin, we also talked at our Q4 meeting with anticipation of what is going to eventually be enforced with SB 1383. There is potential that there could be monitoring on trash. So it's a possibility. And like we discussed, and what our kind of conversation that happened was, we don't necessarily have to implement a trash contamination monitoring and in place now. But if we are going to go down the road of contamination, it would be a great idea to just include that in the Prop 218 process, where we, as a district, it's on the back burner if Cal Recycle comes along and says, you now need to be monitoring your trash.
Yeah, I do think that we run the risk of if folks are so afraid of being charged, the default is, well, then I'll just throw everything in the trash.
And that's part of the problem too, though, because the organic waste, that's what SB 1383 was all about, right? Is that all your food scraps and your organics shouldn't be going into the garbage. And so, like we had kind of talked before, I mean, this is mostly focused on the recycling and organics waste streams. But in anticipation, and if we're gonna do a Prop 218, we're gonna go that whole route, then you might consider looking at trash, not to be implemented right away, but to have a backup plan if Cal Recycle is saying that's now a requirement.
Yeah, I just think that like, if people are so scared of penalties, they're gonna just put everything in the trash.
What does that monitoring that you mentioned, how would that be different from what we're doing now?
So the monitoring wouldn't change. You're still using, folks are still right now receiving notifications as an educational, right? Saying you placed a contaminant in your recycling, or you placed a contaminant in your organics. notices have been in place, those have been sent out since June. But as the monitoring systems improve and get better with detection,
Oh.
then these numbers on these monthly reports that I send Jeff about contamination are getting larger, is what is the spark of this entire conversation.
When the notices go out, is that they're going out on a weekly basis or do they go out with a bill?
Per occurrence, so as soon as it happens.
So that's been 4 months. So what has been your experience with the notices going out? Have they been helping where people are, I mean, but you're saying it has not been
It's
helping?
mostly positive from what, on a local level, I mean, I still help the girls out on the phones at our local office, you know, like I'm there with them every day. And a lot of times you get, well, I didn't know. I didn't know that you couldn't bag your recyclables, right? We've had a few folks reach out to TCSD because they received a notice and they're super confused. And I'm so appreciative, that Jeff will forward them to me. And then I have an opportunity to have a personal approach on education and resolution. So generally for me, it would be, okay, hey, we mailed you this flyer with this bill, right? IWMA generated these awesome sorting guides that we sent out this year. And so I'll say, do you remember receiving that? I'd be happy to send you another one, or sharing information about the IWMA website. You know, that it's generally an education. And then folks are like, wow, thank you so much. I didn't know.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I just think we should just continue on that path of education, and I just not comfortable with threat of fines right now. You know, we have a agreement in place too, so we have our branches
So the
agreement in place too, so.
The other side of that though is, yes, you do get people that care enough to call about a notice they received. And then again, about 50% of folks who are receiving these, I'm on auto pay, they don't even open the notice. So
That doesn't make sense. You just said it goes out weekly, it's not related to the bill, so.
no, but they receive anything in the mail from WM and they know that their bill's on auto pay, that they're fine. And they don't open it.
I tell you, don't you put notices on the trash cans?
Well, we definitely can. That can be part of the process of this contamination monitoring. So,
That's what was being done.
so at the same time, if you're tagging, right? We're gonna run into some other issues of drivers exiting their vehicle. And that's a whole other topic that we can definitely visit. But if you see this contamination list, which I am more than happy to share, and you can imagine how many stops per day and a driver also cannot see a contaminant, right? Until it's serviced, until it's dumped. So at that point, he's serviced it, then has to put the truck on lock, exit his vehicle to tag an empty cart, which doesn't even exactly explain to the customer or include any sort of description as to what the contaminant was. So it's a whole operational delay at that point if the driver was to do that with each one. And as we talk about this further, I really would be happy to share. We can compare over the last 6 months. We could even compare back to mid-state days, what our level of contamination was at that time, to give you an idea of just how much better it's being documented.
We're getting a lot more information for sure. I don't know, maybe, I guess I would be curious to see, like, what we thought the contaminant level was, let's say in recycling. I wanna say my recollection is that one point, I was like 24% of the tonnage was contaminants. At some point in the past, how does that compare to today? And is the education working? Are we slowly making steady progress? And at some point it won't be good enough. And this is, we'll have to continue to ramp up efforts to get, it's gonna get harder and harder to get that next percentage of cleanliness of either the recycling. In my experience, the green waste has never been as big of a problem.
That's for sure. Recycling is the biggest problem.
And it's mostly the bags, like bagging of the.
It's bags and trash and non-recyclable items that are being placed in the.
Some people use the term wish cycling,
Yeah.
which means that maybe it's recyclable, I don't know, I'll just put it in there. And it'll be, and someone else will sort it out, and that's kind of been the history, right, like, that's why, you know, I can't recall, I've been doing this too long, but, you know, something like a quarter of what has been in the recycling container was by weight, hasn't been recycled for a long period of time. I don't know if we're making progress, if that number is better today.
And we can always dive deeper into this conversation and pull some figures from Cold Canyon, from their recycling center where we are hauling our recyclables that we collect in this district. We can ask them for percentages of contamination and what we're sending them. I mean, we can definitely collaborate with IWMA here and maybe brainstorm some other ideas, some better ideas. I just want, the purpose of today isn't to have the committee go yes or no. It's just to have a conversation.
I have a question. So the contamination fees are monthly?
The contamination fees are per occurrence.
Those are per occurrence?
Yes.
But already added onto the monthly bill?
They're added on the next billing cycle. So let's
Okay.
say if you had a contamination on December 20th, that's going to populate on a January invoice.
Okay.
And it'll have the date on the invoice
On the
of when it happened.
So $38 per occurrence that's insane.
Yes.
It almost doubles the,
And there are some that are very high. And I'm, again, not saying that's what this district has to do. I just want to show you a comparison of what we're looking at in surrounding areas.
And I don't know what I mean, as someone in my role, like, there are gonna be some disputes that will need to be resolved, like, you know, when you're putting your trash can down the street, you may or may not be the last person to put something in it. You know, your neighbor might toss something in it, or somebody might drive by and then you know, or hopefully they're properly sorting and it won't be a problem, but if that's not the case, it leads to these.
Have people put their, you know, dog, you know, waste, you know, in the bag, we put it in the my recycling before I had a chance to, you know, do anything about it, so it's just. I mean, things like that happen, and that's why I'm asking, is like, are you looking like, if it's 80% of the garbage can is contaminated, I understand, but if it's just few items. I just don't feel, you know, people should pay that kind of money. I mean, that's something that I think waste management, you know, as they're sorting, they should be able to catch those stuff. I mean, I think it's part of, yeah.
One of the challenges that I think we have in terms of getting information is, and maybe it'd be worth visiting the facility. It's changed a bit since Midstate ran it. For the majority of the time that Midstate was here, Midstate operated what I'll call a recycling line, materials recovery facility, partial anyway, but not. And so all the recyclables that were generated in Templeton, all the blue carts were dumped and sorted on site. And now they're, as I understand it, they're dumped, large pieces of cardboard are pulled out manually. And all the rest of the stuff is trucked in a large container to Cold Canyon where they're processed. The recyclables are not being processed locally.
Yeah.
And so I don't know at what point they get commingled with other areas, or, you know, the Cold Canyon processes a lot of different
And it's unfortunate because all this, and is, you know, it's unfortunate that all this is happening and we have a 10-year agreement, I guess now is 9.5 or something like that. And we can't really go out there and figure out what's happening with, like, you know, what Paso is doing, well, you know, how they processing their recyclables, how much they're gonna be charging. So I just feel like our ratepayers are paying maximum dollars because we have this contract that we can't really renegotiate. So, I mean, all this
I mean,
kind
you
of.
could renegotiate it. I mean, you'd have to incentivize waste management. No, it could be amended now, but there'd have to be something in it for them to agree. So, you know, they've opened the door to renegotiating the franchise agreement, but there's been no terms discussed or anything. But yeah, it could be, as long as both parties agree, it could be amended.
So contamination is noted just as the receptacle is opened and dumped into the truck. That's the only, that's if like the camera picks up something in that moment?
Yeah, so as the materials are being dumped into the truck is when the cameras in the hopper would recognize a contaminant. So whether it truly, again, right, bagged recyclables
Yeah.
or plastic bagged organic waste.
Yeah, super something super odd. So like in the instance of like the dog poop in the recycling, is the camera picking up that? Like is it that?
Things that small right now, that's not what's flagging
Okay.
our warning notices. But again, as I'm saying, as AI is
Yeah.
getting better
Yeah,
and the technology is getting better, right? Is that going to be something down the line? That's something that we'll have to talk about. But the most common right now is the larger
egregious,
contaminated
yes.
items.
I mean, two things. One, I think that your point about putting a physical notice on the receptacle would be the only way really to like force people. I wonder if there's some, as technology, as you advance, if there's some automation that could happen so that that wouldn't require a driver exiting, or if there's something that could like the truck, I don't, whatever, that it wouldn't.
Better mechanical.
Yeah,
arm, so-
yeah, a mechanical arm or something that could put a sticker on, okay?
I wish, but I don't know of anything of that sort right now.
The other thing is these rates are very intimidating and I think inflated. But this is like gonna sound a little bit contradictory. I do think that if we decide to go down implementing a contamination fee, it doesn't make sense to not also think about the trash, because I just think that what will happen is folks will just dump everything in the trash. So if we do a contamination fee, I think we need to think about it for all three, for organics, recyclables, and.
So I guess I want to clarify, because I don't want to speak for Waste Management. Waste Management is motivated to get us to not contaminate the recycling, because the processing of recycling is very expensive. Cal Recycle is motivated to get us to not contaminate the landfill waste with recyclables. But that's actually not that expensive to deal with relative to processing the recycling. So, but the reality is the purpose of all the various pieces of legislation that have come down over the last 30 years is to increase diversion, have less and less end up in the landfill. So if the goal is to reduce what goes to the landfill, then I agree with you. Ignoring the black can contamination might incentivize people to say, I don't know, so I'll put it here where I always can get away with it. But that is countered the big picture objective.
We should have a can that's just for, I don't know. So you put it in there and then let you guys figure it out.
Well, I mean, so and hopefully over time, things improve, so there's all these other related items about packaging, who's responsible for them. So right now, I don't know, I mean, you probably noticed that a lot of packaging, depending on where you buy, especially if you buy it like at a club store or something, you have a lot of mixed media in the packaging, plastic and paper. It becomes very difficult to achieve a recyclable component because you've got to disassemble this packaging that's tamper-proof. It's designed to keep you from breaking into it at the store. So it takes some real effort to achieve that level, and but can't be processed as recyclable when it's got a mixture of plastic and paper.
Well, it's just like, after Christmas, we always got like, leftover bucket with a little bit of lard in it. It's a plastic bucket, I guess that's going in a black can because I'm gonna separate trying to get the lard out into the green container and the plastic and, to the.
If you need a food waste pail from the IWMA, let me know. I'll have one dropped off for you.
It's just, trying to separate, things that are, stick hard.
It's an added effort, and I agree.
Or like, the inside of a mayonnaise jar, it's like, put it in the dishwasher.
Well, no, actually, didn't you say that we don't have to, I was gonna ask you, do we have to wash those anymore?
They just do quick rinse, so small amounts of food particles are okay. small amounts. But yeah, if you have enough in there that you could shake something out of it, you should give it a quick rinse. Yeah. And I just wanna add to this, folks, clearly, we don't need a resolution today, it's just a conversation, but I'm really excited to see what IWMA has in the future for us. I'm going to a committee meeting next week with them to talk about future things for their constituents, and I just think that there's a lot of other outreach and educational opportunities that are going to come through the IWMA here. And this doesn't have to be right now, you guys, I just wanted to talk about it. So I'm excited to see what IWMA has planned and what type of notifications and outreach that they're going to continue to do within SLO County. And there may be some solutions there that are going to reach people in a better method than a warning notification letter, right? And that's just the goal, is we just wanna educate people as much as possible and have folks genuinely care about doing the right thing.
Could I ask a little?
Personal, yeah.
Personal side note, Christmas trees, is there a special pickup for those?
We
Or
do free pickup for Christmas trees. You just need to call our office and give us a call. Otherwise, you can cut it into 3-foot sections and put it into your organic waste cart. If you have room, but if you don't, I get it, leaves are still falling. So you just call the office and we'll schedule a free pickup on a collection day after the holiday.
Okay.
And no flocking, no lights. So we sent
No, no,
out,
just the green Christmas tree.
Yeah.
It's tall. It
just the regular.
would-
One of those 40-footers, huh?
Well, no, but it's close to 12, so that would,
Oh, that's.
4-foot sections, that would take
Yeah.
3 weeks to get rid of, so.
Yes.
So, we cannot haul anything over 6 feet long. So if it is over 6 feet, you will still have to cut it in half.
Oh,
But
okay.
but we will schedule a free pickup. When we sent out our annual newsletters to the commercial and residential customers, there is a little bit in there about what to do for Christmas trees. So you just
Okay.
call us over at the Templeton office and
Yeah,
we'll get you picked up.
my wife got a big one this year, so.
If I could add one item, we did have a gentleman make a complaint this week. It's loosely related to the topic, and I had informed him that this committee was dealing with a waste management item, and this individual, his name is Kurt, wished to appear today, and we gave him instructions on how to get it via Zoom, but for whatever reason that didn't work out. He did send an email to me, and just for the record, I'll just read it to you since I have it right now. And it, yes,
Oh, okay.
it says, I screwed up. I didn't ask for a Zoom call URL and thus have missed the meeting. It's still going on, but this is just gonna be quicker. Waste Management needs to launch a marketing blitz to all their customers regarding trash do's and don'ts, include their contact information on the marketing materials, send it out at least twice a year, stay connected to your customer in that way. This will help people understand the waste management process. I'm sure that people will come around when they are corrected. As an example, I didn't know the plastic bag rule. So of course, I'm surprised when I'm told I violated rules. I also can foresee that people will elect to not have a blue recycled can at all, then they don't have to do any sorting. The waste would be put in the black container, ending any discussion about recycling. The issues after talking to Waste Management lead guy yesterday are resolvable. Getting Big Corp to do anything that will cost extra is an uphill battle. At the local government level is where the marketing materials could really help enlighten the customer, which would reduce complaints. I also like the idea of 3 strikes and you're out idea, probably came from Jessica.
I did talk to them.
Yes, we've all spoken with Kurt this week. On the penalty side of the trash pickup, this is on the Waste Management Contamination Procedure document. People will adjust if you educate them. I was not informed about waste management policy, nor have I seen the waste management waste education material provided until yesterday. Having TCSD spend money on a campaign to educate the population regarding waste would definitely help to limit unhappy calls to TCSD. Definitely something to consider in the budget. I'm sure you all have better things to do. Thank you for taking my complaint. I'm hoping trash pickup and hauling communication will get better. In any event, I believe his intent was to convey that message. So I just.
So we did have an opportunity to speak to Kurt, and he spoke to one of our operations managers, Richard Rosa, as well, who's been with WM for a really long time, even before the Mid-State days. So I didn't work with Richard until Waste Management. But he was able to connect with him over the phone as well. We had some email back and forth with Jeff on there. And I had explained, so this particular customer is enrolled in paperless billing. So that means that all forms of communication, including the IWMA sorting guide and our annual newsletter that went out, those are also sent via email.
Also or only?
Also, they're only sent via email. When you have selected paperless communication, that means all communication is sent via email. So again, makes it a challenge. Folks know they're on auto pay. They see an email come through. They might say, oh, they're just sending me my bill. I know that the bill's coming out. But whether that bill is opened and you open the attachments.
I've never received any flyers, anything, any email, and I do read the waste management.
So when
Fine.
you open your statement, so you got your newsletter, there was a cleanup flyer that went out in October. And then in December is our annual newsletter. So when you open your PDF for your bill, when you open the attachment, it says.
So you have to go through the whole. and then
Yeah,
sign
so
in,
you have to
sign in
open
for your account.
no, so it's in the email.
It was not in the email.
I'd be happy to connect with you outside and show you too. If you'd like, I'd be happy to. So there's an insert when you have your PDF of your bill where you have to open it to see the insert. Doesn't include it. And so that's another thing we can chat about if we're feeling that maybe these notifications aren't reaching folks. Maybe I just make it mandatory that they all have to be printed and mailed.
When was
Well,
it sent, you said?
So this would have been with your December statement.
I got mine in the mail just like 3-4 days ago.
Days ago,
Here's the email, here's the invoice, there's no other.
No attachment.
Do you mind if I walk over?
View entire message maybe? New invoice.
So view invoice.
Go again.
So we have to do.
So you do still have to open it and then go to the very top. There's insert.
Click it,
Click your
yeah.
insert.
Okay, it's a little
Yeah.
tricky. But I will say, I don't disagree, I believe that our insert system is also not particularly read. I mean, all utilities use these concepts, whether they come via email, they come in the mail, and it's my belief that while it's a cheap way of reaching the customer, most don't read what comes in the mail. You grab the bill section out, or you look just for the thing, you just toss it all aside. I mean, I look at ours because I want to make sure that the stuff we send got there, but, because I'm aware of what's coming, but like, I get notices from PG&E and I'm just grabbing the bill and the
Yeah,
rest
I
is
don't
going to
get
trash.
any.
I don't think it's not, commonly, or it's often perhaps not noticed or read. And that's not a waste management thing, that's just people are looking for a bill, they get the bill, and they think the rest is just marketing stuff, you know?
So that's how you give notices for like if they
When
violate.
someone is paperless, yes, it's included like that on the invoice. So when someone gets their statements mailed to them, it's an actual page.
So like if they violate like over, over.
No, so that's not on a bill
That's
like
separate.
that. That's a separate notice, which I believe on the last time I was here and I talked about, I showed you like the letter template that has the photo. If it's emailed to you, it even has a video link. So it's
It won't say anything.
not on your invoice like that. It's a separate
Separate communication.
notification.
Maybe separate communication is more effective.
I think
I mean,
so.
but we're in the same boat. I mean, TCSD does the same thing. It's very efficient for us to put attachments in the bill as opposed to mail something directly separately.
No, you do, TCSD does it separately.
Yeah, we don't have a little insert button like that. You're right. It's just.
The email is separate.
Yeah, it's true that the bill,
PDFs,
yeah, the
yeah.
bill
Separate
is
PDF.
separate than the.
But when we put it in the mail, they're all just in the
Oh,
same
yeah,
envelope.
yeah, when I get the email, it says, here are the flyers that's supposed to have gone with your statement, and then I get to see the.
The statement.
Yeah,
What we could do as well, is I've done this for some other places, is we could do an e-blast outside of billing. Where, maybe 5 days after your bill goes out, just that cleanup flyer or just that sorting guide is sent. And those are cheap, that's no problem, I can schedule e-blasts all day long, if you think that that would be helpful, and I think any attempts that we do at this point to educate our ratepayers is going to help all of us, to be compliant, so.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Maybe it's a separate, a separate e-blast, like you said, like,
Outside of your bill, right?
outside the bill, because
Yeah.
there's something different,
So, I mean, we're at a good timing right now, even being end of the year. I mean, I can submit on Monday an e-blast for the sort guide and the annual newsletter that just went out. That's totally fine. And that can become a regular procedure, and I think it would be helpful.
I think so. That would be good.
So. Again, guys, I just wanted to talk about it today. I appreciate everyone's feedback and just. We want to be prepared for any sort of regulations that are coming in the future. We can revisit this later and we'll meet again in Q1 with Jeff and Justin, and we'll kind of talk about things and see where you guys are at, so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, you guys. See a few of you in a couple hours.
Yes. Future agenda items?
So I guess just, when you think about future agenda items, please, yeah, the committee makeup will likely possibly change on January 20th. So if there's something that's kind of, you want to make sure you tackle, we'd have to schedule a meeting before then. And then just by way of reminder to the public, if you're interested in continuing to serve on this committee or others, please get I say application, it's not a complicated application. Back into Carrie in by early January, so we can notify the board that we have members wishing to serve. The board president will appoint new members to committees on January 20th, and the board will appoint members of the public to committees on that date as well.
Okay, so for this committee, they have to reapply, okay. What about Measure A?
You just started, you're good for
Okay.
2 years. 2 years from October.
Oh, wow.
Now, you're not done seeing us. Lucky for you.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so we'll just hold on
Yeah.
then. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.